My mother kept a garden of the heart. She planted all the good things that gave my life its start. She turned me to the sunshine and encouraged me to dream, fostering and nurturing the seeds of self-esteem. And when the winds and rain came, she protected me enough, but not too much, because she knew I'd need to stand up strong and tough. Her constant good example always taught me right from wrong, markers for my pathway that will last a lifetime long. I am my mother's garden, I am her legacy, and I hope today she feels the love reflected back from me. And each of you is here in part because of the loving seeds of goodness that Anita planted in your lives, planted and nurtured and cared for over the years. Seeds that were planted not only in the lives of her children and grandchildren, but so many in our community. And so we gather to do what humans have been doing for over 50,000 years. Imagine that. Long before we had temples or governments or even alphabets, we tended with care and love and devotion to the remains of our loved ones. And so we gather to do a few things, to give voice to our sadness and sorrow, to comfort one another, to help each other bear the burden of this loss. But mostly we come to celebrate a remarkable person, a wonderful person who graced our world for 88 years with her loving, giving, generous spirit and her positive, can-do way of living. And you can remain seated as we sing the insert hymn, Great Is Your Faithfulness. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not the insert, it's 423 in the hymnal. Well, we won't win any awards for our singing abilities, but please join me in a word of prayer. Surrounded by people we love and who mean so much to us, we pause just to think, to consider life. This is a sacred moment for us because life is sacred, and life has given to each of us a place to belong. And Anita has belonged in the lives and affections not only of ourselves, but of so many others through the years. We are thankful for this. We are thankful for her life and how she gave herself. We are thankful for how she allowed us the blessing of her friendship. Thankful for her heart, her spirit, her determined way, her love. We are thankful for the ways in which she could inspire us and how she could challenge us. We are thankful for every good thing we saw in her and for the friendship and anchoring we drew from being a part of her life. Her life has now ended. It's run its course. We still have the opportunity to finish ours, so may we learn from her. We let her go thankful for having been a part of her life. And as we determine to hold her memory dear now that light has lifted from her, so we look to your light to continue to be upon us. May we experience comfort and even peace in this day. This is our prayer. Amen. And then printed in the bulletin are the words from the 23rd Psalm, a psalm that has brought comfort to people for centuries. Please join me as we read it in unison. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. About 3 weeks ago, when I got back to my church office, I think it was early Sunday afternoon, there was a message on the phone from Doug. Doug doesn't call me often, but almost every time he does, something sad has happened. And his voice quivered, and it was filled with emotion as he shared about the death of his mom. I would later learn that your mom was 88 years old. I was shocked. I never ever would have guessed that she was that old. She certainly aged well, didn't she? The last time I saw her, I was at Dougie's memorial service. Anita, the matriarch of the clan, and her presence there reassured all of us that somehow we would get through that horrific day. When I think of your mom, your grandma, great-grandma, your friend, a few words immediately come to mind. Beautiful. She was beautiful on the outside and beautiful on the inside, not a bad bone in her body. I think, too, of the library and all those years I would see her over there. Her voice always filled with joy and love, a twinkle in her eye. She was quick to lend a hand. The world certainly needs more people like that. And then a couple of weeks ago, Bruce and Lois and I met, and they shared lots of stories, lots of memories about all the good times you had growing up with her. Anita Hewitt had her priorities in order. Family and friends always most important. A good day was one that started with a hot cup of coffee, just kind of like on the front of the bulletin. That was a sad day, though. But a hot cup of coffee as she appreciated the beautiful flowers in her yard. In our divisive, divided world, Anita's presence was always a source of calm and peace, a welcome gift. And over the years, life kind of softened her, especially with the arrival of her grandkids and great-grandkids. You guys could get away with stuff Mom and Dad never, ever could have gotten away with. Anita called things like she saw them. but always from a good place, always thinking of what would be best for you. And she had a wonderful sense of humor, a great laugh, with a remarkable ability of making everyone feel comfortable in whatever situation you found yourself in. So learn from her. Laugh a lot and never take yourself too seriously. Certainly over the years, sadness visited your mom, but she had a remarkable, resilient spirit, focused on the good and the positive, never dwelling in a land of doom and gloom. And that is the very best way to live. When you live that way, others look forward to spending time with you. You always left your mom's presence feeling better than when you went there. She got the most out of the hand that life dealt her. She fully embraced her mortality and never wanted to be a burden. Death was not an enemy. And so when you gather as a family to share a good meal, let your time be seasoned by those good stories that she shared. And then, like her, know what isn't important. Another thing I know is that in this crazy moment we live in, the world would be a better place if more people were big-hearted, less quick to judge, just like your mom was, seeing good in everyone. She was always your biggest and best fan, always believing in you. And I know, too, she had a deep, abiding faith, not a silly, churchy, preachy faith, but faith in herself, faith in her family, faith in the goodness of life, a faith not centered around an ancient creed or one that demanded she believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. She had a view of the world that allowed her to accept everyone and helped her to realize that every person who crossed her path had something to teach her. And finally, I know every person here feels blessed and privileged to have known and loved her. But I'll bet if your mom were here right now, she'd want to hold your hands, look in your eyes, and say, no, I was the lucky one to know and to love you. So now I just invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Let a memory, a thought, a picture come to mind. Whisper a quiet thank you to her. But don't simply build a shrine in your heart to her memory. Do what she did. Live the good life so that your life, like her life, will be worthy not only to be remembered, but cherished and celebrated for years to come. Amen. And now Lois and then Andrea and Doug are going to share some thoughts with us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I know a lot of people couldn't come because of the snow, but that's okay. My mother would have said, watch the weather, don't drive. Today, I give the hardest eulogy yet, and I hope I do you proud, Mom. Thank you, everyone who made it to celebrate the life of our mother, Anita. She would have said, like I said, watch the weather. She was a Grammy to 9, a great Grammy, Mimi to 12, with one on the way. She was the matriarch, the rock, the glue, my best friend and mentor. She was motherly to a lot of people. Her son-in-law Lou, daughter-in-law Nancy, people growing up in the neighborhood. She was just really friendly, caring, and loving to a lot of people. Mom would chat it up with everyone. She had such an outgoing personality. I bet if I asked most people what stuck out about her, they would say her smile. Justin Jr., her great-grandson, said she was like a ray of sunshine when she walked into a room. Mary Ellen said to me she was, oops, sorry, I lost my place. She was a lively presence, and that's true. Now, that being said, she could also banter back and forth with people and joke around. When first married to my dad, she slid behind the couch, and when he walked by, she grabbed his leg and he jumped a mile. I hated the movie Chucky, that scary doll that was horror. Everyone knows that I hate Chucky. And she had this little Chucky doll, and she was sleeping over my house, and she put that little Chucky doll in my coffee canister so that when I opened up to make the coffee, there was Chucky. I screamed. Lou called her the battle axe, my husband, kiddingly, and she laughed about it. And this Christmas, when he opened his present, she signed his gift from the battle axe. My son Chris bugged her for years to go to a Bruins game. She dragged her feet. She didn't want to go. She hadn't been since Bobby Orr played, and she had no desire to go. So we must have caught her at a weak moment, and she said she'd go. She was in her 80s. She finally said yes. Well, Chris, her, and I went. She had so much fun. She was screaming through a program. She was fist-pumping the guy next to her, screaming through the whole game. But that was her. Growing up with Mom, she was super strict. She ruled with a look and a wooden spoon. But she also was that mom who had fresh-baked cookies. Snickerdoodles were everyone's favorites, I think, or butterscotch brownies. When we came home from school, there was something fresh out of the oven. She tucked us in at night. I'm not going to lie. She still tucked me in when I slept over. Man, I was lucky. I'm honored to have had that kind of motherly love. We all are. All of our family had a close relationship with Mom, including my children's spouses, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren. She got great joy in being a grandmother, and the great-grandchildren were the apples of her eyes. She had a whole orchard. Each one has their own story with her, and memories and special relationships that they are lucky to have had and will remember throughout their lives. Mom had a few sayings. It is what it is. The one I try to remember and live by is, I remember when my son Chris was going to Bahrain, and I said, what am I going to do every day? I'm going to worry about him. And she said, don't worry about the things that you can't control. And I try to think about that when there's situations when you come up with and you can't control it. I say, a wise woman once said. I used to say that to her. But the best was, the change in society. She just didn't understand. She said, I want that on my grave. I just don't understand. People in the stores with pajama pants on or any type of funny, weird thing, she's like, I just don't understand. So she had Doug's girl, Sheila, they had shirts, a question mark, and I just don't understand. So that was her. She said, I want it on my tombstone. So I guess we need to put it on there. She'll probably come back and haunt me. She wouldn't haunt me. So I can explain the last 6 months. I know it's a lot that went on with her, and it's a story that I want to make brief, but so people understand what was going on. This past August, she started the process for a new aortic valve replacement. She was a good candidate to do it with a procedure called a TAVR. And they go through your groin, or they go through in like the cardiac cath unit. It's not in an operating room. And they can do it easily. When she met with the cardiologist, she asked if she didn't do the procedure, how much time would she have? And he said probably about 6 months. He said if she did the procedure and that she was a good candidate for it, that it would give her a lot of good years afterwards. The risks being low, but a hope for a few more healthy years. Well, it was like opening up a can of worms when she went in. They had to do a pre-procedure. She had blockages, and she was in AFib. She needed a pacemaker. She had a perforated gallbladder. Like, she doesn't do things easy. She probably had symptoms and wasn't telling me, because she would tell my brother Bruce, don't call Lois, because I'm a nurse. But after all that went on, she was good, and she was getting ready to have the procedure. Let's see. She had an amazing team. They spent months getting ready for this procedure because she had to have it done a special way because she had lots of blockages, so they had to find a way to get it in. Leading up to the day of her valve replacement, unbeknownst to us, she had been thinking a lot about the outcome and made peace with herself. A few told me of conversations that she said, "I'm okay if I don't make it through the procedure. I'm getting tired and not at all afraid of dying." She said she lived a good life and was always surrounded by the love of her family. She didn't want to be a burden or put anyone out. She had macular degeneration and it was getting worse, and she couldn't imagine living without sight. Obviously, we know she loved to read, and it was just getting difficult. She spent most of her days, she had Nala, Ashley's dog, when Ashley moved to Florida, and Nala just loved her. And most days she just sat with Nala and read or looked at her iPad, played games, things like that. And I don't think that was the life that she wanted. She wasn't supposed to exert herself, and for the most part she didn't, but when I would take her to the cardiology appointments, they asked if she got short of breath or tired when exerting herself. She goes, "Oh, I don't do anything." Meanwhile, I said, "What? What about last month? You washed all the windows." Like, she literally washed, "Oh, they tilt in," she said. Or vacuuming, she washed the floor. She goes, "Oh, I just sat down and paced myself." She was still trying to live. That's who she was. She wasn't the type to sit around and do nothing, and I honestly think that that was just driving her crazy. Honestly, I thought she would fly through the procedure and not be that less than 3%. The week before her procedure, Ashley came up from Florida. Most of the kids had called her or talked to her. The morning of the procedure, I went in and cuddled next to her in her bed, and we joked around like we always did. We were at the hospital in the pre-procedure room, kidding around, and the nurses remembered her from last time, and she just made everyone loved her. The doctors loved her, the nurses, everyone. She looked at the doctor and she said, "I trust you," after being told the risks. But her coronary artery disease was severe, and there was complications after the valve went in. They transferred her to Boston in case of a need for another procedure. When she got to Boston, the nurse said she was chatty. The staff said she was interactive. She was very funny. She told them, "Everything is in order with my affairs, and whatever happens, happens." Things went downhill pretty quickly throughout the night, and when the doctor discussed this with her, she looked at me and said, "We knew this was a chance." Making the decision to stop interventions and make her comfortable was made by my mom, my brothers, and I. Mom said she was not scared. I was hysterical, of course. I don't care, I'm 61. I was laying on her chest. She was consoling me the whole time. I felt selfish. Here I am, she's dying, and I'm yelling, "I don't want you to go." Because I didn't. She was my best friend. It was so hard. Lou was with me the whole time. Thank God I couldn't have got through it. And we had all been at the hospital in Concord. It's just a lot. So it was a busy couple days. I was just trying to grasp this surreal situation. I knew what her wishes were. I abided by them, but not without feeling selfish for not wanting her to go. She was a mother to the end. I look back at what a great life she had, happy most of all, just being a loving soul to all. Her attitude never faltered with all she was going through. She would say, "It is what it is." The littlest one, Nash. Hey, Nash. What did GGG say to you? He called my mother GGG because it's a long story, but he called me Gigi, and then she was GGG. And she called him on the phone, and at the end of the phone call, she said, "Okay, darling, good night." He goes, "My name's not Darlin, it's Nash." And so when he last spoke to her the night before, he FaceTimed, and he said, "I love you, GGG, darling." So, right? And where did GGG go? He said she's up in the sky. She's up in the helicopter. And Amelia, where's Amelia? And Amelia sent a letter up to heaven. She threw it up, didn't you? She threw it up to Mimi, and she asked me, do you think Mimi got my card, my letter? And I said, yes, she did. Thankfully, these little ones don't understand what's going on as much, and they have kind of happy memories and just are here with us. And I'm sorry, I lost my... Don't be afraid to hug the ones you love. Tell them you love them. Cherish all the time you have with them. We are all blessed to have had so much time with my mother. So as she would say, goodbye, darling. I love you. Ooh.
Okay. For those of you that don't know me, I am Andrea, Anita's oldest granddaughter. My grandmother was a very special woman, and to have known her was to love her. She always brought a smile wherever she went and stayed positive even through tough times. Many of our childhood memories include trips to Grammy's house, whether it was weeks spent with her in the summer, looking at stars, helping her in the garden and baking, or spending Christmas together as a family. Time spent at Graham's is a staple of our childhood. She always had stories of her childhood and growing up in different times that we all were eager to hear. Her love for reading translated to us, reading us childhood stories and tucking us in while saying, "I love you, darling." From the time I was a little girl, she taught me and all of us grandchildren what it meant to be respectable and polite people. Her deep lessons in love transcended to her children, but also to her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. We will always remember her infectious smile that lit up the room. We will forever hear her laugh and joy for life. She's the Grammy that left an imprint on all our hearts, and we are blessed to not only have known her, but loved her. Rest peacefully, Graham. We love you. I want to end with a poem that my daughter Victoria wanted me to read, and Victoria came to Camp Mimi every summer for most of her life. It's a poem from The Fox and the Hound that they watched together in most summers. I remember how we used to play. I recall those rainy days, the fire's glow that kept us warm, and now I find we're both alone. Goodbye may seem forever, farewell is like the end, but in my heart is a memory, and there you'll always be. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm not a real good public speaker here, so bear with me. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you for coming to honor my mom, a selfless and true blue leader and teacher to many of you here in this room, including me. One of my favorite memories as a child was me and my mom going out to our backyard before school, and we'd first and second grade, we'd always count how many of our tiger lilies open in the springtime. That was a ritual every morning for when I was young. So, hence, doing that, she instilled the love of gardening and flowers to me, which I still love to do today. I feel lucky to have had my mom in my life for so long. I was blessed. I will miss her dearly. That is for sure. like all of you. But I know I will see her again at home. My final thought for all of you is that we are not human beings living a spiritual life. We are spiritual beings living a human life. So we will all be together once again at home with the Lord. Thank you, and I love you all.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to share a memory?
I have a loud voice. I don't know.
Okay.
So, the last time I saw Mrs. Hewitt was in September, the same place that you were at the time, and every time I saw Mrs. Hewitt, she would say, "You're old enough. You can call me Anita." I just couldn't do it. It was out of respect. I've known her for close to 55 years, and I never called her Anita. So, Anita, I love you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we're going to have to sing again. Our closing hymn, How Great Thou Art, we'll do verses 1, 2, and 4. And I have a little higher expectations this time. On behalf of Anita's family, I thank you not only for your presence here this afternoon, but for all of the love that you've shared with them and will continue to share with them. Please join us in our fellowship hall for a time to enjoy some refreshments and stories. And this is a little parting thought that Doug has requested us to share together. I'm standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the moving breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side shouts, "There, she is gone." Gone where? Gone only from my sight, that is all. She is just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone says, "There she is gone," there are other eyes watching her coming and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "Here she comes." Amen.